Hey guys, welcome back to Zogok's channel. Today we are back with another H.L.M.S episode again. This episode will be about Zogok, one of the most unique amphibious MS during 1 Year War. Before we start this video, make sure you subscribe to me and hit the bell next to it. Remember to turn on your CC sub. Enjoy. Let's clarify something before the actual video starts. One of my audience pointed out that my information about Ze'Gok's origin was incorrect. First, thanks for the correction. Second, that introduction was just a quick and simple way to let people understand without me going through the whole origin in 10 minutes. But in the future, I'll explain it properly. Alright, let's focus back on the Zogok now. Since the Zeon Independence War started, Zeon's MS showed their power and successfully gained its fame. But because Zeon and Earth Federation signed the Antarctic Treaty, Zeon's original plan rendered useless. In order to force Earth Federation to negotiate again, Zeon came up with the Earth Invasion Plan. At the beginning of the planning stage, Zeon believed an old myth, which is 70% area on Earth are oceans. If we control the oceans, then we can control the Earth itself. So, based on that myth, Zeon changed their focus on developing aquatic and amphibious MS for controlling the oceans. MIP, one of the Zeon's main manufacturers, planned the development of Zogok. The Zogok was originally developed at the same time with Gok, an amphibious MS developed by Ze'Gok company. But because MIP received the combat data of Gok, they analyzed the data and revisited the design of Zogok. The redesigned version upgraded the land combat and sportiness abilities, increased the firepower and improved the practicality. It was categorized as first stage amphibious MS at the beginning, but because of the redesign process, the production was delayed for a month, which was why it will be viewed as second stage amphibious MS, just like the H.L.M.S. Using the combat data from Gok, the developers used different materials for the structure and armor. The armor thickness was decreased, but surprisingly, the overall defense was better than the Gok. At the same time, the developers changed the generator. The new generator became smaller but is still providing high output. Because of the reactor change, the internal space became bigger and allowed better arrangements for the internal parts. Different than Gok, the Zogok was equipped with water and air-cooled radiators. This feature extended the operation range of the Zogok, because it's not only relying on water cooling like the Gok, which means the Zogok can fight on land too. There are chemical fuel rockets on the back to increase the jumping ability of the Zogok, and thermonuclear water jets on the feet to further enhance the cruising ability. During the designing stage, the Zogok was also given the ability to fight above the water surface, which means it could be more flexible than the Gok. Even though the performance of the Zogok is better than the Gok, but it's a costly machine as the parts cannot share with Gok. Because it's a high-performance MS, the piloting became more difficult too. The Zogok armaments include 30 rounds of 240mm missile launcher on the head, iron nail, and megaparticle cannon on the palms. Because of the outstanding performance, the Zogok was accepted and approved by the Zeon's frontline forces. The Zogok was quickly mass-produced in California base. The Zogok have an upgraded version called S-Type or Commander Type. This version enhanced the Zogok's sportiness. The armor material was changed, and the reactor's output was increased. The developers slightly adjusted the overall structure and parts, so the weight was reduced from 96.4 tons to 95.2 tons. The armaments and appearance were exactly the same like the previous version. One of the S-Type was created and painted with red. It was assigned to H.L.M.S. The Zogok played a big role for the Jabra assault. It also performed well as one of the main forces of Zeon's Earth team. On November 30, UC-79, Zeon attacked Jabra, the headquarters of Earth Federation. H.L.M.S. successfully found the secret entry into Jabra. Working along with the H.L.M.S team and Zogok, Zeon successfully damaged the base, and H.L.M.S created the iconic scene where the Zogok used the iron nails and penetrated the gym. However, the Gundam came out and fought with H.L.M.'s Zogok. Amuro got a few hits on H.L.M.S and successfully cut off the Zogok's right arm. H.L.M.S retreated, and later in the story, most of the Zogok was produced as S-Type instead. In UC-96, an unknown number of Zogok participated the Torrington-based assault. It was colored with dark green. One of the units was destroyed by Bioline Custom. The rest of the units were unknown. There is another version of Zogok appeared in Gundam Thunderbolt series. For those of you that don't know about Thunderbolt, it's part of the official history, but it's kind of like an alternative universe story. In this version, the settings remain untouched. The appearance was obviously changed. The overall defense was further increased. The legs were redesigned to achieve better land and cold environment performance. The legs also added hover units to allow the Zogok to move faster on land or ice. The armaments were just like the original Zogok, but instead of the mega particle cannon, it was replaced by machine gun. In the Thunderbolt story, the Zeon remnants used the Zogok during the Antarctic Circle battle. They used the machine gun and missile launchers to break the icebergs. The big pieces of ice fell into the ocean and squashed a lot of gym marine type. However, H.L.M.S Gundam came and cleaned up the mess very soon. The 600 and Ver.ka Technical Evaluation Unit used the Zogok as the base. Combined with Mobile Diver System, the Ze'Gok was created. The Ze'Gok is the control unit, which is the heavily modified Zogok. Its job will be controlling the MDS and logistic weapon container. The bottom part will be LWC, a container that carries powerful weapons. The Ze'Gok can select two types of LWC. Let's introduce the Type A first. LWC Type A measurements are 73.7 meters long, 17.7 meters wide, and 20.3 meters tall container that can carry weapons from 540 tons to 670 tons. It could carry 4 cruise missiles. They are large and long. We are talking about 60 meters for each missile. They are effective during mid-range air-to-air situations. The destructive power is strong enough to one-shot a Salamis class, or it could carry 4 large rocket pods for close to mid-air support. Each pod contains 28 unguided, fin-stabilized missiles. They are not as good as the cruise missiles in terms of power and effectiveness, but it's very good for a rapidly fire volley for inflicting large-scale damage. LWC Type B measurements are 73.9 meters long, 22 meters wide, and 18.2 meters tall container that can carry up to 1,189 tons. It's fitted with a scattering beam cannon called Clublium. This cannon is specifically designed for Earth drop descending attack. This cannon was developed from an unknown Zeon's mobile armor. There are a total of 22 megaparticle cannons that will be fired in a circular array. The scattering beams pattern will be 5 groups of 4-tube beam cannons subunits. The beam could be adjusted to individual scattering beams or thick and focused beams that could fire for 5 seconds before the whole thing overheat and explode. Originally, the control unit was not a heavily modified Zogok. It was supposed to be a dedicated unit, but because the plan was brought ahead of schedule, the Zogok became the control unit and modified to Ze'Gok. The reason on why choosing the Zogok was because the design itself was good enough to modify without too much work. The thermonuclear hybrid engines on the Zogok allow it to perform good in water or on land, which is why it doesn't need a lot of redesign. Simply add some boosters, propellant tanks, and pylons on the body. The Ze'Gok is ready. Because of the additional parts on the body, the Ze'Gok could achieve atmospheric flight. The Ze'Gok will usually deploy from satellite orbit and enter into the atmosphere, launching surprise attack towards enemies on land, air, or sea. Because of the complex controls, it's very difficult to pilot and attack enemies. The Ze'Gok cockpit was different than the original Zogok's cockpit. A United Maintenance Plan compliant cockpit was installed and it will be controlled by 2 people. The front guy is the main control and back guy is the fire control. The armaments of the Ze'Gok was from the Zogok. The new weapons were the LWC. However, the right arm of the Zogok was replaced by targeting antenna arm. It's a retractable sensor unit that will swing forward and fully extend when the LWC activated. It's for collecting communication and enemy's data, as well as precision targeting. The Ze'Gok deployed for a total of 3 times. The first 2 missions were failed. For the last mission, the Ze'Gok was equipped with LWC Type B and successfully shot down 5 battleships that were launched from Jabra. However, when the Ze'Gok was retreating, it was shot down by a team of Core Booster 2 intercept types. The Ze'Gok was destroyed and sank into the ocean. The Ze'Gok project was cancelled as the battlefield shifted to space. Another reason on why the project was scrapped because every time when the mission was finished, the pilot will recover by Gao aircraft carrier, but the LWC and Ze'Gok will be dumped. Only the pilot will return to space, resulting the project itself was extremely costly and inefficient. Zogok is always considered as one of the most successful amphibious MS that Zeon ever created. With a great design, it will definitely have other variations. After MIP successfully developed Zogok, they started to work on other potential designs about it. One of the variations will be Zogok Crab. This variant never appeared in any manga or novel. It was a design feature in Bandai's model journal in May 1989. There wasn't much information about it. The only known information include the armor material was changed, upgraded the firepower, mobility in water, and overall abilities. The Zogok Crab armaments include 3 torpedo launchers on the top of the head, 2 megaparticle cannons on the chest, 6-tube missile pod on the left arm, iron nails, and megaparticle cannon on the right palm. In November UC-079, one Zogok Crab was deployed from Mag Angular class and served as an escort unit for the Garbo Unit 4 in Indian Ocean. The Zogok had excellent performance whether on land or in water, no matter against MS or cruising ship. The Zogok's iron nails were good enough to penetrate Jim's armor or punch into the ship's body. Despite the iron nails had such powerful penetrating power, it also had a stupid flaw. There is a chance when the Zogok punched the iron nails into the ship, the iron nails will be stuck in the ship. The pilot had no choice but to die with the ship together in the explosion, making it unsafe for the pilots to attack cruising ships. MIP collected the combat data of Zogok and the flaw of the iron nails. They decided to upgrade the Zogok's abilities and fix this flaw. The upgraded version was called RAM Zogok. MIP added a lot of improvements towards it. They redesigned the arms, changed the head part, and modified the backpack. The first obvious change were the arms. The iron nails were removed and replaced by claw shields. The claw shield provided the same close combat ability like the Zogok, but without getting stuck into the ship's body. If the claws still stuck on the ship, the claw shield can be simply ejected and the pilot can easily escape from the explosion. The claws can extend from the shield. It's even longer than the iron nails on the Zogok. If the RAM Zogok is piloted by the right pilot, this feature could make the RAM Zogok a very strong close combat MS. Since the iron nails were removed, the megaparticle cannons could fire faster now as the pilot could no longer worry about opening and closing the nails. The Zogok's missile launcher were replaced by an unknown number of shock absorbers. The heat ram was developed based on the design of Heat Hawk and Heat Saber. The ram Zogok will often use this Mohawk-like ramming spike to penetrate MS or ships with superheat. Additionally, if the ram Zogok was fighting in cold environments, the heat ram could easily break the surface ice. Unfortunately, I can't find the deployed records of the ram Zogok. Other than it was appeared in Return of Johnny Ridden manga, I can't find anything else. But in the manga, in UC-090, one ram Zogok was stored in a facility under Federation Survey Service. One of the upgrade plans from MIP is Zogok E. The E in the name stands for experimental. There were a total of 2 variations. One is called Zogok E and the other one is called Energy Cap Test Type. But I can't find any information about the test type. The Zogok E was part of the United Maintenance Plan. The goal of this development was further upgrade the performance on both land and underwater combats. First, the Zogok E main propulsion system moved to the legs to create a more streamlined shape for better mobility in water. Secondly, the limbs design was changed to retractable design like the Gok. The reason of this change was just like the propulsion system. The new backpack got thrusters for jumping and precise movements on land, making the Zogok E's land mobility was slightly increased. The cockpit was changed to a United Maintenance Plan compliant cockpit just like the Ze'Gok. In order to upgrade the firepower, the megaparticle cannons were replaced by beam cannons. It's powered by E-cap. The power and fire rate were greater than megaparticle cannon. The Zogok E had an improved generator to enhance its performance. The missile launchers were removed. It was replaced by torpedo launchers. There were 6 of them on the head, making the Zogok E became better when attacking underwater targets. The iron nails were upgraded as vice claws, providing better close combat ability. Since the back was emptied because the propulsion system relocated on the legs, the Zogok E can equip a jetpack. This jetpack is a booster device. It contains a pair of chemical rockets for the MS to launch itself out from the water or glide on land. After the fuel is emptied, just detach it and keep fighting. Due to the fact that Zogok E was produced at the near end of 1 year war, it had a limited number of units were fielded. One of the Zogok E was assigned to Cyclops team and piloted by Steiner Hardy. It was launched to attack Arctic Federation base, but the Cyclops team didn't stop the spaceship that contained the Gundam NT-1. They even lost a H.L.M.S in the end. In UC-096, it was seen again during the Torrington base attack, but only the manga version showed it. When Zeon was planning the attack towards Jabro, they created various types of MS to adapt the environments around Jabro. MIP developed another variant of Ze'Gok, Zogok. This unit was specifically designed to operate with the AG series. The purpose of Zogok was different. It's still designed as an amphibious MS, but focused more on land combat. The design concept was cave battles and close-range battles, which was why there wasn't any firearms on it. The Zogok could still travel in water, but only with the propulsion units on the feet. The underwater ability is weaker than Ze'Gok, but just like other amphibious designs, it doesn't have an independent head to reduce water resistance. The backpack was purely designed for maximum performance on ground, which means it's useless in water. The mono eye was designed with Zimit style, a cross pattern. This design allowed the Zogok to detect or see better in water, but this design also took a lot of internal space, which was why the parts were pushed down to the bottom chest. The Zogok was designed as a close combat MS. It got a lot of unique melee weapons. As I said before, MIP designed this MS to fight in a narrow field, which was why the weapons were designed based on this idea. The Zogok got a heat sword as its primary handheld weapon. Both arms could extend and form arm punch. It could deliver punches that are powerful enough to crush through most of the armor. The manipulators were designed perfectly for punch attacks. The only ranged weapon on the Zogok were the boomerang cutters. There were 10 of them and they will be launched at high velocity to damage the enemy. The boomerang cutters proved their power and still not really outdated after nearly 20 years. In UC-96, the Zogok was equipped with Strength Faust. It's a simplified and disposable rocket launcher. It's not guided but is a high destructive weapon. If used correctly, it could be a threat. Even though the Zogok was specifically designed for the environment in Jabro, but because its weakness was too easy to spot. Plus, Earth Federation already deployed Jim in the battlefield. The Zogok was assumed to be weaker in the beam weapons era, which was why there were only few of them produced in California base. After H.L.M.S found the secret entry into Jabro, the attack plan was scheduled ahead and the Zogoks didn't deploy in time. After the 1-year war ended, a few Zogoks eventually fell into the hands of civilians. In UC-96, one Zogok was seen as the first wave attackers towards the Torrington base. It destroyed a few Jim 2s before it was heavily damaged by the Byline custom and retreated. During the near end of 1-year war, one of the Zeon's astronaut bases, Pesun, started a top-class secret plan called Pesun Project. The project's goal was based on the existing MS and modify, customize it. The second goal was creating a new design if there wasn't any base. One of the examples will be Dom to Rig Dom. That's one of the Pesun project goals. Under this project, or MIP based on the Ze'Gok starter and use it to develop a new concept, the Gasshia was born. The history of Gasshia is an extreme mess. I found 2 versions of its development and I'm not sure which one is the most accurate version, so I will share both. Version number 1, the Gasshia was developed under Pesun project. The original plan contained 2 variants. One of them will be operating on Earth, the other version will be operating in space and launched with Rig Dom during missions. Version number 2, based on the Ze'Gok's design and combat data. MIP used the data and hoping to create a MS with the following abilities: high performance, versatile, high level of defense, use of beam weapons, high mobility, size reduced, maintaining high output from the generator, remove the heavy water cooling system, and high level land combat ability. I just realized MIP asked for too many things on one MS, no wonder why this MS didn't success. Anyway, no matter which version, the development details were close but just different beginning. Instead of an amphibious MS, the developers wanted to focus more on land battle, kind of like what they hoped for Zogok. But the Ze'Gok's internal design was extremely complicated because it was designed for both water and land combats, which means there is no way it can create Gasshia with easy modifications. Because the design purpose was focused on land, the air and water cooling system were removed and only air cooling system left. However, this decision made the MS cooling performance became bad and unable to catch up with its size. So, the developers had no choice but to shrink down the size. Once they shrank down the size, another problem came out, which was the generator had to become smaller to fit into the MS. This problem caused the generator output went down and the output of Gasshia was only half of Ze'Gok's output. As the development kept going, the problems became bigger and bigger. They shrank down the size to let the cooling system work better, but at the same time, because MIP wanted better defense, so it got extra armor compared to Ze'Gok. This caused the weight was heavier than Ze'Gok, which means Gasshia cannot achieve what the developers hoped for, a hit and run MS. Due to the strength downsize, the generator output became smaller, which means another demand was failed. The Gasshia cannot use beam weapons. Because the Gasshia focus on land battles, there is a pair of ground sensors on the backpack. At the side of the back, you will see two blade type antennas. Because the missile pods on the backpack affected part of the detecting screen, the antennas were there for extra detection. For the armaments, it got iron nails like the Zogok. On the backpack, it got two 4-tube missile pods. They will open when firing it. As for the primary weapon, the hammer gun will be the option. The hammer gun is a large spike ball that will launch from a gun. The maximum launching range is around 150 meters. There is a special feature in the hammer gun. If the target is behind an obstacle, the hammer gun can still hit the target. Originally, there were more customized weapons for Gasshia, but the 1 year war ended too quickly and only a few of them produced. Since P.E.S.U.M was taken by Earth Federation, some Gasshias were destroyed, some of them were sealed by Earth Federation. Following the end of 1 year war, the Gasshia plan was scrapped. MIP cancelled the space type plan and later the company itself absorbed into AE. When the Mars Zeon faction station at Mars invaded the Earth sphere in UC-0122, they developed and brought the newly updated MS that resembled those old Zeon's MS. Zogok was one of the MS that Mars Zeon redesigned and brought to the battlefield. A lot of things were changed compared to the one developed during 1 year war. First, Mars Zeon gave the RF Zogok a modern update. Every stats and abilities were updated. Secondly, the mobility and combat performance were enhanced on ground or in water. There is a new pair of hydrojet thrusters on the back, allowing the RF Zogok to operate in water for a very long time, almost like a submarine. Since the 1 year war, Earth Federation don't really care about underwater MS development. When the RF Zogok arrived on Earth, Earth Federation had no match against it. The RF Zogok's armaments include 2 beam cannons in the palm, 4 beam cannons on the wrist, and 2 beam cannons on the chest. Heat claws instead of iron nails. The missile launchers on the top of the head were replaced by anti-ship or anti-air missiles. The RF Zogok appeared in a video game called Mobile Suit Gundam F91 Formula Report 0122. This game is quite old and I can't find the full gameplay, so I honestly don't know what the RF Zogok did in the story. Thanks for watching. What do you think about Zeon's seafood? Comment down below and tell me more about it. Zeon got a lot of amphibious MS that worth an episode, which I will cover them all in the future. If you like these unique designs, make sure you don't miss those episodes when it's out. Like my videos, subscribe and hit the bell next to it for more videos in the future. Donation link is in the description and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.